Thank you for tuning in to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast, where co-hosts Matt Bucher and Marty Wheeler interview motocross and off-road racing and riding icons to capture their stories and experiences for you. So buckle up those helmets, grab a handful of throttle, and get ready to listen to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Season 2, Episode 5 of the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Bucher, joined by my co-host, Marty Wheeler, and our favorite audiovisual man, Mr. AJ Underwood. If you're watching us on YouTube, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We also want to thank our show sponsor this evening, Championship Power Sports, located in Wauseon, Ohio. They've got a special deal going for you, the listening audience. Call owner Jim Durvage at 419-335-8600 and mention the promo code Toledo Podcast to find your special pricing. He's got a deal worked out for the audience, so that's really great. So again, thanks to Championship on sponsoring us. You can also, Marty, I forgot to mention, you can check out their new line of bikes. Their at Championship, which is the Gas motorcycles. He doesn't have Sherco yet there, Nick, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully he'll get them on there someday. So,
well, it sounds like the gases are going out the door because I've heard 3 or 4 guys have already bought them.
They're on the gas.
Yeah, they're on the gas.
Gas.
Yeah.
Okay. We're honored to be joined today by a professional off-road racer born and raised from the great state of Ohio. Our guest is National Enduro winner, 3-time ISDE gold medalist, and hard enduro extraordinaire. Welcome to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast, Sherco's own Nick Fahringer. Welcome, Nick.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and appreciate you wanting to join us here and understand you just had a recent hard enduro down in Alabama, right?
Yeah, Northern Alabama, the opening round of the SEER series, the Southeast Extreme Riders. So,
weather good, no ice.
There was no ice on the ground, but there was freezing fog. So there was
trees look pretty.
Frozen droplets on the brush and tree branches up at the higher elevations.
Wow,
that was pretty wild.
Well, I saw a highlight video. You might have actually shared it, Nick, on your Facebook page. I'm not exactly sure, but it looked foggy, and it starts like a hair scramble. Is that correct? Is that pertaining to this series, or is that how all the series starts?
I'm trying to think. I think every race of the SEER series, I guess technically it's a hard hair scramble rather than a hard enduro.
Okay.
Because they do mass starts, and it's a bar-to-bar extreme race.
Yeah, and how did you end up?
I ended up third, which after basically dominating the series last year and winning the championship, that's not how I saw starting the year, but coming from Central Ohio, conditions haven't been conducive to getting any seat time in the last several weeks. So, I had some adversity going into that race, and perhaps we'll touch on that. It just, it was good to get riding, but I'm not happy with my performance. I have high standards, so sometimes it's hard to make myself happy on the bike.
Well, but I'm assuming you're not happy, but you'll come away with no injuries, right? No mechanical issues. You got a third place in points, right? So
yeah, no, I mean overall it was a good race day. I just sometimes it's not about the result. It's knowing where if I hit my personal mark, if I hit my stride, found my flow, and none of that happened for me. So, if I did my best and everything went great and I finished third, I'd be really happy. But, I can win and not ride well and not be happy. It's all about how I ride. So.
Right.
The top 2 guys, were they Southern boys or where they got some seat time?
Actually, no. The first place rider, his name's Ryder LeBlanc. He's a youngster from Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
So he's been under snow, but he's full-time dedicated to riding and training. So I think he's been down south as well as just riding through the snow. The second place finisher was Quinn Wenzel, who's riding the new, we were calling it the Raju, but it's actually pronounced Ray. I forget how to pronounce it. Rehu or something.
Rajo? Rougeau?
Is that something new? I haven't even heard that.
That is basically the old gas. Is that right, Nick? I mean, that's a gas motors and.
From what I understand, it's a Spanish company that bought the latest pre-KTM version of the gas, and so they're reproducing that with a different color plastics. And
oh wow,
the name sounds like pasta sauce. And but anyway, he's from Northern Ohio, and he bested me for a second, and pretty. There was a gap there, so.
Wow.
Quinn Wenzel's from Northern Ohio?
Yeah, he's from I think the Cleveland area.
Okay.
Maybe ish.
I did not know that. I thought he was an out west guy. I don't know why I didn't pay attention close enough there, but yeah. Well, that's great. A couple Ohio guys, in my opinion, a couple of Ohio guys going down there and doing well.
Yeah.
Wait till Sunday. It's going to be 50 degrees here, so maybe that snow will be all gone. You'll be able to get out and put some heat time in.
Yeah, I plan on hitting one of the regional hare scrambles, maybe an IXCR someday. So,
yeah, that was, I again saw on your Facebook, you've shared some stuff over the winter, some videos and pictures of, and maybe you don't want to, reveal too much, but where do you do your hard enduro training? Is that, I'm assuming you got to go down into some mountains and rocks somewhere out of this state, I assume.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic what I try to do with where I come from. But I spend a lot of time going to West Virginia and a little bit of time in Kentucky. I go to Tennessee some. It's a tough drive to ride ratio on the weekends, but that's what I do. I shoot out to West Virginia. There's some riding areas that have ample hills and rocks to play on. More Tennessee, you get more rock. Kentucky is kind of a mix, so. Just depends on what I got time for.
What kind of terrain do you like the best?
I like the biggest hills I can get to that have the least amount of undergrowth, so you can get off the trail and just kind of carve a hill. Some areas, kind of southern Ohio, the hills are a little excessively steep with shaly kind of rocks, so it makes the ground hard to ride on those hills. Areas of North Carolina can be a little more forgiving, where you can just have a big soil-based mountainside with rock in it, and you can ride it. Tennessee, it's a toss-up. It's fun reading the terrain, but I like the bigger terrain. I like big chunky rocks over shale rocks like they have in Kentucky. So, what's
that place in Tennessee? And I've ridden there. It's like a big riding park. I'm sure you've heard of it, Nick. You've probably even been there.
Royal Blue?
What part of Tennessee?
Oh boy. It was an old mine, and I think they turned it into a park. It has the word rock in it. Maybe.
Well, there's Windrock.
Windrock. I think that we went down there as a couple of club guys several years ago, and when I went, there was no single track, but supposedly there was. I don't know. Have you ever been there, Nick?
Yes, I've been there. I've ridden there. I don't know what trail there is. Well, there's different things there.
You could tell that there was some riding going on, but this was probably 7-8 years ago, a long while back. But I thought that was a really fun place, but it was more, 2-track, that type of thing. You could tell there was a lot of side-by-side activity down there, but
I think it's Royal Blue too, just right over the border, coming over Jericho Mountain. I think there's a lot of riding there. I think there's 80,000 acres there, but I don't know how much single track is.
Yeah, you probably have to know a local guy or gal to kind of get you back in those areas. I see the Kenda on the shirt, and I think the audience can too. But
yep.
What kind of tires you run in them hard enduros? I mean, what specific model, I should say, of Kendas? Because I like Kendas myself. They're great tires.
Yeah. So the cool thing about Kenda is they have a very diverse product line, and looking at tires that work for hard enduro, they actually have a pretty expansive offering. They've got the Ibex, which is their first commercially or publicly available tire. That's a great hard enduro tire. They also now have something called the Gauntlet and the Gnarly. So all these tires have a very gummy rubber, but the different tires they make have different casings and different knob patterns that kind of suit different conditions. So the Ibex is great all around. I actually prefer the Gnarly, which is more of an FIM style tire. So it's got a wider carcass and a shorter knob height. So it kind of gives you a bigger footprint with less knob squirm. But because of the short knob height and the tread pattern, it doesn't work good in the mud or the really loose stuff. So that's where the Ibex comes in. So it's kind of a toss up on conditions and soil type.
I assume you run mooses.
Yeah. So Nitro Moose is a product by New Tech, the company that has the tubeless system. I've played with tubeless, but for ultimate flat protection, I run the Nitro Moose tubes, and particularly they call it like a softy and a platinum, I think. So I run the soft version, which gives you a little more give, and then I actually modify the tube, to drill it out to get it even softer.
Because the soft one gives you what, about 6 to 8 pound equivalent to the air?
That's what they say, and it completely it's really dependent on the fit that you get, and they've got a chart to help you find the right moose size for your tire, and there's a range, and then of course it fluctuates as it breaks in. So
yeah, I've been running the tubeless for years. We do a lot of out west riding. Been really fortunate that we haven't had many flats, but we did some rental bikes for the 6 days. Had some guys fly in and rent some bikes, so we put mooses in those just so that they didn't have to worry about anything. And that's what we're sort of moving towards now in our own bikes is the mooses, especially that Nitro Moose is nice moose.
Well, you can't. I mean, you can't afford to go to a race, and I remember years ago, probably 2004, a lot of years ago. Was that almost 20 years ago now? Oh my gosh.
Older than
wow.
Older than Nick.
I think I'm going to fall off my chair. But anyway, I remember we went up to Marquette, Michigan. We did not run mooses that time. We drove all the way to Marquette for a national in front flat tire, pretty much the last 20, 30 miles of the race. And that was terrible. Absolutely terrible. So since then, mooses are it. So, but, so I assume those Kendas are probably not so in great condition once they're done being kind of soft with those hard enduros that you just rotate them each time type of thing.
Yeah. When you're doing hard enduro racing, you're running in rocks. You're usually in a situation where you're stuck or trying to not get stuck. So you're constantly doing aggressive riding on rocks, and that soft rubber does not last more than a race.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a number of races, they'll run us for 2 days or multiple like kind of motos or different stages. And it's hard to start a second stage or a second moto on the same tire when it's like, hey, if I can put a new tire on, I will. But,
well, the Tennessee Knockout, isn't that a 2-day deal?
Yeah. For amateurs, for the pros, you have a hot lap in the morning, and you have 2 different knockout rounds, which are kind of like a long hair scramble loop or an enduro segment, and then there's the main event. So I typically will go through 3 rear tires in 1 day for that event.
Wow.
What do you run in the front?
Again, it depends on conditions, but actually I just started testing what they call the Gnarly front, which is a hard enduro offering in a sticky rubber. It's very similar to the Washougal 2 front, but it just looks like they added some shoulder knobs to it, which the Washougal 2 I really like. I exclusively ran that for a while until they came out with the Washougal 3, which is more of a intermediate to soft tread pattern, and it's the best front tire I've ever run when you're riding in the dirt. It doesn't stick to rocks like the more hard enduro centric tires do that you need sometimes. But if I go to a hair scramble this weekend, I'll have a Washougal 3 on the front.
Yeah, those are good. I've tried those, and Got the Millville 2s. I've tried those. Those are good, really good tires. Let's kind of go back in time, because, you know, for the audience that doesn't know who you are, talk about your beginnings and how you got started racing. And, you know, I'm assuming your dad got you involved. Maybe both your parents did. I don't know, but kind of let's talk about the beginning of young Nick's life and
how old is old Nick now?
Current Nick, right?
Yeah, current.
I'm 33.
33.
Okay.
So once upon a time, I mean, Matt, you probably remember my dad used to always go to the enduros with me in the
Carl.
early days.
Yeah. I remember Carl.
So he got me started. My parents got me my first bike when I was maybe 3.5, you know, a little PW. And I just recreationally rode around the house, just play road. I think my dad would get a kick out of, you know, at the end of the day, if he wasn't riding and they were, say, had a bonfire or something, be kicking around a drink with the guys. They'd throw a log out there and have me try to go over the log on my PW. And then that would escalate into bigger logs.
Was that their entertainment? Let's see if Nick can get across the logs.
Yeah. I mean, that might've been the start of something right there, now that we're kind of never thought about it that way, but, and I progressed through like old, you know, metal gas tank XRs. And, cause you know, this would have been like 1991, and then through the 90s, just riding really old antiquated bikes. And it wasn't until like 99, I was 12 and I got on a full size, a 200cc 2-stroke. And that's when I went and started doing my first off-road races around Southern Ohio's District 11. I did a couple hair scrambles, did a couple local enduros, and kind of just took to it. I did well in like the B class. So that's when my dad thought it would be a good idea to take me to all the national enduros as a B rider, just to, I guess he saw as an opportunity to win, you know, like a class championship before I got in the A class, when, you know, a lot of guys get to the A class and never win a darn thing. So, so that's what we did. And actually I was a little, say underage to be riding enduros at that time, because you were supposed to have a license. So the AMA got on the phone and threatened me to stop riding enduros until I had a license. So I missed a few races, but then ultimately I did end up winning the overall B that year, and went to a lot of neat places to race. I think that year was there was a national enduro in Colorado. It was like the throttlehead.com national enduro. I don't know if you remember that.
I never went to it, but I remember them having a national there.
Okay. Yeah. So that was super cool. I mean, I'd never ridden a bike in Colorado, never ridden in the mountains, and to go out there and do that at that age was great. So anyway, I just kind of rode the national enduros every year for like 12 years in a row. I went and did the college thing. I went to college for mechanical engineering. So that was tough, because I wasn't going to stop racing. And
where'd you go to school by chance?
University of Dayton.
Oh, okay.
I stayed close to home so I could keep the bikes going in Dad's garage.
Understand.
And so, I mean, that was trying. Anybody that races and goes to college, it's I know the struggle. So it definitely was compromising the results. But once I got out of school, I quickly picked up a factory Husaberg ride. And that's when that stint I had on Husaberg for, I started out on gas gases.
I do remember that.
Yeah. First year in the AA class. So yeah, we're still in rewind mode here. This would have been 2005. I rode 250A, and the riders in 250A were Russell Bobbitt, Steven Edmondson, Blair Bersano, Tim Tabor, and myself. I don't know who I'm forgetting. So that was a tough year in the A class.
Yeah.
And I think I finished fourth, but that was the first year I'd ever been on a 250. And the top 4 or 5 riders in the 250A class all got their AA national number that following year. So it was quite a year moving into 2006, where I got on the gas, rode AA. And I guess from there I rode AA for 10 years. And then I kind of got I finished all over the map. I'd get better and better. And then, I guess life would shift, competition would get hard, and I'd usually bounce off injuries. But I went through a string where I started winning a bunch of nationals. I led the points championship 2 different years for a moment. And then it just wasn't meant to be. I'm going to crown myself the unofficial fastest guy to not win that championship.
You run a Husky then, right?
Yeah, I finished off my stint trying to take the national series on a Husky. I don't know if I said that right. Yeah, my last serious year on a Husky, and just my everything kind of deflated around me. I was stressed about trying to race to keep alive, and I was racing through injuries, and it was just needed to make a life shift, I guess. So I said I was going to quit, and then the next year I got some help from Clay Stuckey, who started importing the Sherco motorcycles.
What year was this, Nick, approximately?
This was 2017.
Okay.
And I dabbled in the national enduros, but I was it's funny because I actually didn't agree with the Sherco right away. And the reason for it, and I'm not trying to knock any particular bike, but coming off of that particular generation of the Husqvarna, I know they got better since then. It diminished my confidence. We tried so many different suspension alterations, and I think just that bike was a bit of a Franken bike of different components that, Austria had and tried to create. And I never agreed with that bike. And I think that's why I got hurt, and that's why my results went in the tank. And it took me about a year riding the Sherco before I started trusting a motorcycle again.
Was that a 250 that you were running, Husky?
I'm sorry?
Were you running a 250 Husky? Is that what you were running?
I rode 302 strokes from 2011 on.
Okay.
So back in the Husaberg days, I rode their big, 450, 70-degree motors and the 570s.
How'd you like
that? Was a trip.
How'd you like the Husaberg? I had a 450, so how'd you like that?
Okay.
How'd you like the how'd you like the big bikes?
I really liked it. Honestly, if I could have one bike from back in the day, it would honestly be the previous generation Husaberg, the one that had the steel frame, like the subframe was not, it was steel and welded to it. It was just such a unique bike, and it was such a tractor. It was very light. The 70-degree bike definitely handled better.
Yeah.
But
the 70-degree bike, I had one. It felt heavy, but once you got moving, it was like you were on a fairly light bike, which is always surprising me, And I've been everywhere with it: Colorado, Montana, Arizona, and through things. It was really weird. It was just such a bike that, like I said, it felt heavy if you tipped it over, but you get it back up and get it going down the trail. It seemed to work really well and feel light.
One thing that contributed to that was they had that bike actually had a higher center of gravity, the way they set that motor. So it felt heavier, like low speed picking it up, or if you tipped over. But when you think about center of gravity in a bike doesn't pivot at the tires. It pivots at its middle. Like when you go to enter a turn, your tires go out and your body goes in. So they raised that crankshaft and eliminated rotational inertia to a point. And so that's why the bike did handle really well. But ironically, the minute I got off of it, I started winning a bunch of enduros. So while we can have fond memories of those bikes, I think that I built up a lot of strength and precision riding such a heavy bike that when I got on a two-stroke, I did really good until I hurt myself.
You had a knee. Didn't you had a knee injury? Didn't you when you were on the Air Group Husky team? Yeah.
And that's pretty much every knock to my career was a knee injury. Swapping out on a moto track that wasn't groomed. Not that I need a groomed track. I was riding in like dry, hard ruts. So one time I just was doing circle ruts in the yard and fell over and tweaked it. And then, in 2014 maybe or 15, I was riding for Air Group Husqvarna, and I was practicing too aggressively on a bike that I think it had a funky linkage. I think it had bad bearings or something. So I was fighting the bike all week training, and obviously I wasn't doing maintenance. I tried doing something too aggressive, flying through the trees, and ended up ragdolling, and that set me back kind of permanently.
Well, that happens. And, you know, I mean, you stop and think about what you just said. I mean, you've raced probably hundreds of races in your lifetime and traveled all over the country and the world. And, you know, then you fall over in your backyard and get hurt. You know, it's just like, just like, why does it have to work like that? You know, but it kind of is what it is. I remember back in that you mentioned the gas days, 05, 06, 07. There was a bunch of us. I was in the open A class on a 300 gas. And I don't know if you were in that class at that time, or were you still in the B class then, or were you in the A at that point in time?
And I never rode open A. I rode 200A for 1 year and then 250A for 1 year. And then it was, I think 2006 and 2007 is the years I rode the gas.
Okay. And what class would you have been in then?
Double A.
Okay. So you moved. Okay. Cause I don't know if we were ever in the same class, but I thought we were at one point, but maybe it was at a qualifier or something. I'm not really sure, but it was interesting. Cause it's like, you know, guess who got faster, Marty, and who did not get any faster? Mr. Fahringer did, you know, but no, it was really cool to see it progress like that, because it was, in my opinion, you know, you were kind of our guy, you know what I mean? You were from Ohio, and seeing you all the time, and you and your dad, and what was the fella's name that always was with you guys? I can't remember his name. Kind of your mechanic friend, you know, close friend. He rode as well.
We had a couple different guys that would jump in different seasons. We had a guy, Dwayne. We had a buddy of mine that would rode a lot, Brian Ziegenthaler, would call him Ziggy.
That's it, Brian.
Okay.
Yep, I remember him from back in the day as well.
He's back to riding now. He's been doing the local enduros, and you know, a lot of guys, they step away, and I think life just lets them know you got to get back on a bike, and so guys come back to it, and all of a sudden it's like that buddy that you were missing, he's alive again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it's natural, at least not making excuses for me. It's like, you know, you get married and kids, and yeah, I did the college thing trying to race, and took 5 years to get a 2-year degree. We won't go any further with that, but you know, it's, you know, same thing, you know, life gets you, you know, go 100 different directions, but yeah, I don't know. It's great. It's great to hear that, because I always thought Brian was a nice guy and talked to him at the races quite a bit, but he was always very, very friendly. So we want to thank Championship Power Sports for sponsoring this episode.
They carry Honda, KTM, Husqvarna, Beta, and now the newest on the market, Gas.
Marty, how do you find them?
Got to call Jim at 419-335-8600 and mention promo code Toledo Podcast for your special discount. 17, you jumped into Sherco. Feel good at it at the first, back into a Sherco, jumping off and your Huskies, or it take a while to, you know, every bike's got their own little tweaks and everything, you know, everything out there. So did you feel comfortable right off the bat on the Sherco?
Yes and no. When I first got on the Sherco, I tested a 300 2-stroke and 4-stroke, and I noticed everywhere I tried to hit a rut or a turn, I would end up hitting the rut and then turning way inside. Like the thing was carving out of ruts to the inside. And so I thought, this bike turns phenomenally. The suspension didn't feel bad out of the box. It was, at that time, it was on WP stuff. And we did some massaging, try to figure it out. The 300 2-stroke, the Huskies I was riding, we pumped them up a lot. I can't tell you why we would do that, but we did. I was just addicted to torque. So I got on the Sherco. We weren't trying as hard to fiddle with stuff, but that earlier Sherco, I will say that the latest model of Shercos run very strong compared to 17. They did a lot of development in the last 4 years to make the bikes run very healthy. That first year on the Sherco, I was never comfortable because I'd lost all my confidence riding the 14-15 chassis Husky. There's something about the frame on those bikes that I didn't get along with, and it's more of a hindsight thing. But for example, in one season on the Air Group Husky, we did like 26 different shock revals.
Wow.
And just couldn't get happy. You know, over the last 2 years, Sherco changed to KYB suspension. They've They've updated the motors. They've lost some weight, and I am very pleased with the bike. I can go to a local enduro, regional hare scrambles, and that's pretty much what I do. And then any hard enduro I can get to, and it's been a great machine.
So you're on a 300, right?
Yep.
Don't they make like a factory model? And forgive me if I forget. Is it like the SE or something? I was trying to look at their website. Do you ride that model or the base model and then kind of do your improvements from there? Or how does that work?
I ride the factory model because everything that comes on the bike is very practical and useful. And why get they have the racing model as their entry level model, and it comes with the WP components, and it doesn't come with, I don't think it comes with a cooling fan and a couple of the other goodies that the factory edition comes with. So I go with the factory. You don't need to do much more to it to go race it. I add the bulletproof designs radiator guards just because I think it's silly to risk your investment of a new bike without, putting some good stuff on it. But
and you got it comes with a cooling fan and all that.
They come with a cooling fan, a coolant catch tank, solid rotors, lights, skid plate. They got a hydraulic clutch, KYB suspension, Brembo brakes. It's top-notch equipment. So
you really like those KYB forks and shock?
I do. I've been on WP suspension my entire life on the big bikes, and with the exception of the gas cast, had some, I think, Marzocchi's and a Olin shock for a moment, but ever since 2006, that's a long time I've been on WP. So to get on the KYBs, and mind you, I never had factory suspension when I was racing professionally for the, factory Husaberg and Husqvarna. They never got me on the cone valve stuff. Nobody stepped up with the good stuff, and I was too cheap to buy it. So, just the factory bone stock KYB stuff, I think blows away the WP stuff. And when it's valved right, it's great. It's really good. It's got a plush progressive feel that just seems like it seamlessly transitions into, solid bottom resistance with set up right. The WP stuff always seemed to have just, I don't know. It's like their dynamic was wrong. It would either be too soft or too stiff or have a harsh spot. So,
well, I just picked up a 300 Erzberg from Championship last fall, and apparently COVID has wreaked havoc on my weight because I wrote it down at the Wayne National Forest last fall, and apparently I was using every bit of the suspension travel. So I got fork springs ordered from Championship.
Reset that sag.
Yeah, the sag. I didn't get the sag. It was like, there was no sag adjustment. It was the bike was like, you need to upgrade the suspension there, big boy. But anyway, so that's really cool. I think the misnomer, and you could probably touch on this, Nick, is, as an amateur racer or a fan, I think there's this misnomer or perception issue that, Nick's on unbelievable equipment because he's sponsored by Sherco or he's a factory rider from Sherco, when in fact you just dispelled that because essentially you're on a stock bike with parts that anybody can get. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I don't know if teams have taken advantage of me for my whole career where they just thought, let's just leave them with the stock stuff. Or perhaps it's all just a big facade and a big joke. I mean, it seems like all of my peers have always been on factory trick suspension, and I was always just at that threshold where I've got stock stuff. If somebody under me had trick stuff, they or their dad bought it. I don't know how good it is, but I work with what comes on the bike when you go buy it. And the cool thing about racing hard enduro is I guess it doesn't matter what you're doing, but particularly with hard enduro, that the speeds are low and it's more up to the rider and what the rider can do than with the bike. I think if I were racing GNCC, you better have some really good suspension because you're going so fast and sustain just taking a beating. You can't do that on stock suspension or ill setup, a poor setup. So
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like what you said because, when these guys are spending really people don't think about it. They see you racing all the time, but just what it costs you each weekend to get your bike ready, to get it where you need to go, and then turn around, they go, oh, that's great. Then turn around and spend, my buddy of mine just spent $3,000 on a set of forks for his bike. He put on is it Del Saggio, insides, all that kind of stuff, put it in. Fantastic. It works. He just, he said this is the best he's ever had. But, for you to spend all that money getting to the races, getting what you got to do, putting all that stuff out there, then go out and try to spend another $3,000 just for a set of forks, so people don't realize that, money is tough. How long does it take you to win $3,000 to put it in, to put it and cover the stuff? So it's. Yeah.
And then another dynamic of that is I can't practice on stock stuff and then go race on, a kit or something like that. Like
right.
If the bikes aren't identical, then I don't want two bikes.
Right.
And so if I'm going to have factory suspension, I got to have two sets. And then not only that, but do you just keep using that every year in and year out? No, the stuff does wear out. So
right.
And gets better.
Yeah.
So it gets better and you want to change it. So you're going to. Yeah, at some point in time,
each model typically
comes out,
on
comes out a little bit better. So yeah, it's very costly.
I was gonna ask you, did you race GNCCs? I don't remember that for some reason. Did you ever?
I dabbled in. I do one here or there, but I just really don't like the idea of pounding laps for 3 hours around the same track, a track that you could drive a Jeep or a van around. I mean, I know that they've gotten better, but when I started racing professionally, that's when the crowds of GNCCs were so big and the tracks were already demolished, by the, kind of mid 2000s, the tracks were just destroyed. And every time I went to one, it was not fun. So I just never did it. And I know that the teams, the factories, the sponsors, they wanted to see their riders do multiple series. And I just said, I would rather have a crappy job than race GNCCs professionally because I so didn't enjoy it. And one time I quit a race. It was a GNCC. I went in, I think I was overtired. I didn't set myself up well. This was before I ever had trainers to tell me how much to do and maybe how much not to do. But I showed up to a GNCC and I just pulled off the track halfway through because I was in such a miserable mental place. I was like, I don't want to do this. So, so no, I never did the GNCCs.
Yeah. So you said trainers. So who do you use for training?
I got a guy. He's a secret. No.
Oh.
There's a guy out of Charleston, West Virginia. His name's Jacob Petty. I've been working with him for maybe 3 years now. And he's just a very knowledgeable, athletic trainer. He sets my weeks up around my race schedule. And he's been training a lot of GNCC riders, National Enduro rider, hard enduro guys. And I worked with a number of industry trainers as well. I worked with Steve Hatch for a while, and he's phenomenal.
Yep, Steve and his wife's going to be on
in April.
In April.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
They were supposed to be on, and then they apparently signed a new rider here a little while ago.
I think Scott Bright's kid, I think, isn't it?
Is that who
Did
it
you
was?
see that, Nick? I think
they just signed a new one, so we had to postpone a little bit. But Steve, I sort of know Steve through some friends from out in Arizona wise, but him and his wife will be on here in a couple of weeks.
Steve and Denise both are phenomenal.
Sounds like
I was
a good
actually
team.
supposed to work with them on a podcast, and I dropped the ball because I'm not good at organizing and doing this stuff. And prior to that, Matt, you'll probably remember Brian Garahan from.
Oh my gosh, you can't forget that guy. He's
no, so he was living in Cincinnati, kind of at the tail end of his GNCC National Enduro career, and I was just getting started. And I mean, when I was just getting started, I mean he was one of the guys you'd see in the magazines or the catalogs. And when I started realizing he was in the area and I'd see him at riding spots or racing, we hooked up, and he took me to a couple races that were further away that he was going to. And when he'd go back to California in the winter, I'd started going out and doing some riding and training with him. And that was my first time having anybody that was better than like my father tell me how to like go around a corner properly. Like, mind you, this is like 2009. Like I still didn't know how to corner, and I'm racing in the pro class.
Well, and I was going to ask you that. I mean, you made the AA class in that 06, 07, you know, but there's AA, and then you're going to be top 3 AA, right? I mean, you know, at what point did you realize, okay, I can make this happen? Or was it a progressive thing, or how did you at what point did you say, I can do this, I can run with this, you know, because I think Lafferty was still winning everything at that point at that stage of the game, right?
Yeah, when I got my start, Mike was winning everything every once in a while. I think Randy Hawkins was sneaking a win in, and I think David Likey he had a short career, but he won some races. And anyway, I was just doing it for fun and just kind of seeing how high I could punch myself up there in the results. And I guess I never really had goals, or maybe I did. Obviously, I don't think I had strong goals. It was just do it. And boy, I don't know. I think I started getting some podium finishes, so I knew I could do it. I think my first podium was in 2007 in Upland, Indiana. So, and that was my on the gas, riding out of the back of a pickup truck. And it's just like, once you get on the podium at a national, then it's like, I can do this.
Right.
So I just tried to work hard aimlessly. And that's kind of fast forward to today. Now that I have a trainer, I wish I had a trainer back then, because I just thought, push until you're tired, push until it hurts. And how many times are you willing to do that? But if you don't do that right, you put yourself in a hole rather than build yourself up. So,
you know, the closest I've ever come to a podium was when I walked by it. So I never got.
Or maybe when you're giving a speech or something, you know.
I didn't even. Yeah, not even by the podium. I might have done that. So that's my closest thing to a podium. So I wouldn't even know what a podium looks like. But no, it's fantastic that, you know, you're able to do that. I've tried to get my boys. You know, we have a motocross track, and it sort of came about because we were riding in our backyard, and you know, we figured the neighbors probably don't like hearing us. And then of course our crowd went from 4 to 24 to 44 and we're thinking, okay, we probably better get out of our backyard. So we took over an older motocross track there by the airport, and we've been doing that. And you know, they like it. My wife's a big, you know, she likes the off-road stuff. She just doesn't like to see the guys jumping 30 feet in the air and doing all that kind of stuff. So she's been pushing us this year. And we schedule some days off and stuff to try to maybe do some of the family enduro stuff a little bit, just to try to get the whole family involved. And then, of course, my grandson, he comes up and stays for the wintertime from Florida, or summertime in Florida. So I'm trying to get him broke into getting in the woods. He's been on the track. He gets out on the big track and rides his Husky around and does all that kind of stuff. But, you know, trying to get him, hey, let's go ride in the woods. Your grandpa's getting old, and I can't go that fast anymore. So maybe I could keep up with you in the woods for a little while. But that's what we're trying to focus more, because, you know, I came from the hills of Pennsylvania, ridden many, many years in Arizona, single track and stuff like that. So I really enjoy the off-road stuff. I really do. I shouldn't say that, since we're trying to get people to come to our motocross track. But, you know, it's just a great, you know, just for me, I don't race anymore, but we sure enjoy riding, you know, in the trails and that kind of stuff. It's always really fun. So that's definitely where my heart is. You know, like I say, I grew up in the hills of Pennsylvania, running the mountains through up there. So, I guess where I was going with that, I don't know. I went all the way around a couple times. Take the Sherco hat off for a second. What is probably the best bike that, you know, other than the Sherco, that you love today and is the best bike you got?
Now Husaberg, right?
Yeah, the Husaberg. So what do you think? You said, is it the Husaberg that you think is probably the best bike you ever rode, or did you have another one?
I didn't say it's the best bike I ever rode. I said the previous generation Husaberg, the last like Swedish one that was built in the I guess I can't even say that because I think KTM owned them for a while. But it was like the 2008 prior one. That was just a unique bike I'd like to have because it was simplistic. It was I don't know. It was kind of a dinosaur, but kind of ahead of its time. That was a cool bike to keep. But to ask that question when I'm riding a bike that's more advanced than anything I've been on in the past, and I'm doing something unique and pushing the limit with a bike that's set up so well, I can't go back in time and say like that was the best bike because the bikes truly get better every year.
Yeah.
And
thank God they do.
Yeah. I mean, that's if they got worse, then the used bike market would go crazy and people would quit buying new bikes. So.
Yeah, exactly.
The bikes keep getting better.
Yes.
I keep getting worse. Yeah. So the nice thing about it, I keep being consistent.
Right.
That's a good thing about it.
Your trajectory is the same.
That's right.
Right. What you did a couple of 6 days. Which ones did you ride? I couldn't quite find that online anywhere.
So I rode. Trying to think. I think my first 6 days was in Portugal, maybe 2009. I rode on a club team to kind of get my feet wet, trying to open the door to do a junior trophy team year, which that came in 2010 in the Morelia, Mexico, the International 5-Day Enduro. Because day six, the cartel and the federales kind of got into it. And
we'll share that because my dad was there, working in the park for me. And I remember he called home and said it got kind of intense.
Yeah. I'm not 100% clear as to what happened, but from what I understand, we woke up that morning and I don't know if maybe we tried to go to the lobby for breakfast or something, and they said, hey, like, the race is canceled today. Or maybe we even showed up. I forget. Like, all I know is the entire Mexican team had pulled out of the pits. Like, they were gone. So it's like they knew what was happening. And even the porta potties were gone. It's like,
oh, wow.
Everybody was just trying to protect their assets and get out of there because basically what was going on once we went back to the hotel, you could see smoke billowing out from different areas. They were bombing. They were blowing the cartels were blowing up gas stations, and then the police and the federal agents, they were running around fully armed, fully automatic weapons in the backs of pickup trucks, just patrolling the streets. And I guess what had happened was there was a federal takedown of one of the cartel leaders, one of the I guess it was the La Familia or whatever was the cartel name. They took him out at a restaurant, and I think it was a restaurant that I was at earlier that week.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
Took him out. And so then the cartel was retaliating by burning down all the gas stations and stuff. So we still had the party that night, the classic 6 days finale party.
Oh, yeah.
But
I mean, you can't make that kind of thing up. I mean, that's like real life terrorist stuff that, you were involved. So there probably will never be a 6 days in Mexico again. I would assume.
We were at what race was I trying to think we were at? And it was the race in the fall at Redbud. It escapes me now. That's held all over the world.
Oh, the Motocross the Nation?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's late at night, I guess. Getting old. We were there, and there was some people that had been there. And the lady was talking. She said she was in the pits with cans of carburetor cleaner, using that to keep people off from trying to come in and stealing stuff out of the pits.
She was at the Mexican ISDE?
Well, she was at whatever one that was the year before. So
okay.
Whatever was there. She said they were coming in trying to get anything they could get, and she had carburetor cleaner trying to fend people off and keep them out of the thing. So, I guess we think about going to the races here, but I've been down in Mexico. I haven't really been a lot of other places, but, when you get in those countries, it's a different world. Different world for sure. So.
So how you did, because I think you did 3 of them and you got 3 golds, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what was the other 2 that you did?
So we did Portugal as a club rider and got gold there on a 450 Husaberg. So I guess that was the C2 class. And then as a junior rider, finished gold in the, I guess that would have been, again, the E2 class. And I think the Americans, we finished second. I had to look at I got a trophy over there from that. We finished second to, I think, the Italians. And then I took a year off in 11. And then in 2012, I went back to, where'd I go? Morelia. Wait, was that? No, I'm sorry. No, I forget. It was in Italy. It's the island Sardinia.
That's Sardinia. Yes.
Sardinia, Italy.
Yep.
So that year I was on the Wellard Club team with Jimmy Jarrett and Ryan Sipes.
Okay.
And you guys, that was a fun team. And I think we ended up second. Like, we just didn't quite. There's this. I don't know how we got beat. We had a heck of a team, but that's racing. You can't win them all.
No.
What was your favorite country?
That's a tough question. I haven't been to enough to declare a favorite, but each of those races was more of a dry, arid, like not East Coast type of riding. So the riding, as far as where I excelled, it all kind of sucked. And honestly, the race in Portugal was so sandy, and I was not a sand rider. Like, I was an embarrassing sand rider. And now, after living in Georgia for 4 years since then, I love riding in the sand, and I think I'm okay at it. I wish, it's like, if you could go back in time, but now, fast forward to today, I'm really into the hard enduro riding. A couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to go to Romania and ride on one of the X-Power tours. So it's like you buy this tour, you get a rental bike, you get a hotel room, they cover meals, mechanic, and you just ride for like 5 or 6 days. So I got to ride in Sibiu, Romania, right where the Romaniacs Hard Enduro is, and that's the coolest riding I've ever done. It's mountains the size of Colorado, but it's on soil just like you're in, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. And you're not at crazy elevation. Like, you start at sea level and you can climb probably 6,000 feet and you can still breathe, but you just went uphill for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's on our bucket list. My friend of mine out in Arizona, we were actually going to go to the Romaniacs. My son and I were going to pitch for them. And that was when things were sort of ugly, going over that way. And my wife, she just was like, no. And we said, well, we got everything all set up. We actually rented a bike to race on. Everything was all done. And at the last minute, we pulled out. So it's like, yeah. So it still is. They keep. There's a gal, I can't think of her name, but she still keeps sending us. She runs one of those tours. So rent the bike, do the whole thing. They take care of you. So every time we keep thinking about it, it's like they keep sending us some emails. Come on over. And it's not unreal. It really, the price is not bad at all.
Yeah. Huh.
And it's getting
Romania is very affordable. Like, I remember riding and stopping at this small town. I mean, it's sort of third worldish. I mean, it's not dirty or anything. It's just it's not developed like it is here in the States, because it's just so old and it's just kind of like locked in time. But anyway, going into the equivalent of like a 7-Eleven, it's just a small cafe or convenience store. And I remember buying, and don't ask me why I would get this combination of stuff. It's just what they had. A loaf of bread, some beef sticks, a Coca-Cola, and an espresso. And it ended up costing $3 US.
Wow.
And
that's
so I
awesome.
sat there. I mean, just you think of the calorie and the energy I got from that, which I wouldn't eat that today on a ride. I've learned a lot just in a couple of years, but it's cheap.
Yeah.
Was that doing that ride? Was that kind of your progression from going to national enduros to the hard enduro side, or how? I don't think we touched on that yet. How did you kind of segue into the hard enduro scene, if you will?
That ride, maybe it was a bit of an inspiration. It's like, I want to do this, but the hard enduro thing has been kind of peeking its head through the surface in the United States for about 10 years. Back when I was on the gas in 2005 or 2006, I think I did the Red Bull Last Man Standing. And I really was not in touch with how to do that, but I thought it was super cool. I thought I'd be good at it. I think I ended up like 11th or something. So, they never did it again. But I've tried to do just about every hard enduro east of the Mississippi since then. And I really dig the challenge, and it's kind of suited what I always did play riding, which is finding gnarly stuff, playing on hills, trying to ride through rocks, just do the stupid stuff off this boring trail we're on. And so with that, we had East Coast races like the Tennessee Knockout, TKO, which is my least favorite hard enduro. It's just a big game. It's not an enduro. And
big
the tough
game.
like roar.
You
What's
said
that?
Big game. You said.
Yeah, they do these knockout rounds. There's a hot lap and the knockout rounds just to like seed you into this main event, which turns into a 30-minute endurocross style sprint through a really nasty creek and up and down some wild hills and over a waterfall. I like the hard enduros where you go out into the forest and maybe you come back a few hours later.
I like that. Maybe. And
that's what I want to do.
And, we get, this year with the COVID stuff, we didn't get there, but Arizona where we ride, you got Taylor Roberts and those guys all out there, and we ride our ride. And every once in a while we'll come across one of their trails that they've done, their hard enduro trails, and we'll sort of walk it a little bit because I didn't even go up there with a bike. And I'm looking at it thinking these guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Because they've got some pretty interesting hard enduro.
I've been out to Arizona twice and ridden Taylor's practice loop. This would have been 5 years ago.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Things have evolved since then, but then I went back exactly 1 year ago and rode what they would ride. And
that's crazy.
What's crazy is there's so much traction there compared to the East Coast. Stuff is possible there that does not seem possible here.
Yeah.
So the whole time when I ride out there, everything is easier, but it's mentally, it's mind boggling because it's just like, you can't do that, but he just did it.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So did you get to jump the little canyon that he made? So if you're going down, what we call it the wash. So I'm sure you're talking about up around Carefree area where you guys ride, where he's got his trails up there. So he's got a little section. There's a wash that's got some fairly, if you want to, some high cliffs on each side. And he's got one section, he goes up through this creek bed that gets up in the top. Then he comes down this ridge, and he took a bag or two of concrete,
mm-hmm.
and right where it ended, he put a lip. And so he jumps across another wash onto another little lip that takes him down into the wash.
Oh my gosh.
And we were watching him do that, and we're like, there's just no way. There's just, my knees start wobbling, and, and I'm thinking this makes me nervous just watching this stuff. And then he's got where he comes down off the face of that one side. There's a rock, basically a rock side of the cliff area stuff. And I mean, it's pretty good. And he rides across that, and he gets to as far as he goes, and he turns and he comes down and he jumps off about a 40-foot jump or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, I watched that, I'm thinking, oh my God, but it's a blast to watch.
Oh yeah.
I've been riding those trails, single track stuff and some of the stuff since about 1980. And it's pretty interesting how things have changed. And then of course, when him and the guys are out there practicing, and you just park the bike, you sit on a bike, and then you just watch what they do. Them. It's like unbelievable.
Is that an area you've ridden, Nick? Does that sound familiar to you?
Oh, I mean, I couldn't tell you where I've been. And
did you ride from his house?
I rode from Taylor's house. This was like 6 years ago. I rode from his house.
Yep.
And then last year I rode with Max Gersten.
Yep, Max.
And I think we rode from Max's house one day. We drove out somewhere to kind of, it was a ways, and we started up this wash, and I'm trying to think. I don't know what anything was called, but lots of rock and dust and just.
Well, yeah, with those guys, they ride. They ride the Carefree area up by the lakes and that way, and then they also go out towards. You go up towards Payson. You get out towards oh gosh, the big wash out there, and they've got a gnarly loop on the north side of the road going up to Payson. It's interesting just riding the single track stuff.
Oh, really?
You know,
just to get there?
And then, if you ride that, and then they go off that and start climbing rocks, it's unbelievable. But it sure is a blast to watch them out there. So,
do them guys ever come this way to do the hard enduro series in the East Coast?
Yeah. So there's the AMA East and West Extreme, and right now they're two like regional championship series. And then the promoter is combining East and West for crowning what they're going to call a national champion, which will not be recognized by the AMA. But and then there's also the SEER Championship, which that's kind of call an outlaw regional series. And I had won that championship last year. There wasn't a lot of competition, but there were some solid riders there. Then last year I also did the I guess we'll call it the AMA East Extreme. Due to COVID, they didn't even really have a West series. So a year, the previous year was the American Hard Enduro Series, and I rode that. And then so then again last year it was just AMA East Extreme, and a number of the West Coast guys came out for that. Like Max came out to it. Cody Webb, he won the thing. We had Benjamin Herrera from Chile came to most of them.
Wow.
And he's now on Sherco, getting started racing GNCCs, actually.
Poor sucker.
Yeah. And then we had, Tristan Hart from British Columbia, like Western Canada. He came out to all of them.
Okay.
Wow.
So this year we've got the East and the West series both running, and it gets kickstarted in 1 month in Arizona for the West, and then the East gets started in Texas at a kind of a East-West shootout at what's typically called the Red Bull Rev Limiter.
I've heard of it. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have to train totally different? And maybe you don't want to reveal this, but I mean, from racing national enduros and then going into hard enduros, because you and I talked on the phone, I think about a month or so ago when we first asked you to come on, and you said something very interesting to me. You said the travel to come home from race day at a hard enduro is exponentially more difficult than coming home from a national enduro, because of the physicality of the hard enduro. So do you have to train totally different? Is it more explosive training or high heart rate type of thing? I mean, clearly I'm not doing any of it, but it's just out of curiosity.
It's kind of a loaded question. And also, as I learn about training and I work with different trainers, or, looking at back before I ever worked with trainers, it's just everything has been changing anyway. But I'd say for national enduros, I mean, there's nothing endure about an enduro. I mean, if you're doing well at it, if you're taking it serious, you're a professional athlete, the length of a national enduro, you don't need a lot of endurance. I mean, your race time is, I don't know, an hour and a half or 2 hours. So that's not a lot. And it's at a sprint pace, and you get 5 big breaks. So naturally, like when Steve Hatch was training me, he had me do really intense sprints for 10 minutes or even shorter, like 6-minute sprints, just like going through the motions of just sprinting intensely, then taking a break, and sprinting intensely. And when I was racing full-time professionally, I had the base fitness, I had the endurance. We just rode all the time. So training specifically really wasn't necessary. It's just like, winter time, we're going to work more in the gym. In the summer, we're going to ride more. But now for hard enduro, definitely I pay more attention to strength training, because you got to put more physical input into getting the bike to do different things. It takes more explosive power to do bigger moves. And also, there's a lot of time you're just pushing the darn thing and picking it up.
Well, I was gonna say that, because watching the videos, I mean, the first thing that comes out to me is core and quads. You're a lot of you guys are, you got a foot up on a rock, 1 foot up on the peg, your butt's hanging off the thing, off the back of the bike. So to me, it's kind of like that lower body. Of course, you need your shoulders and such, but it seemed like that core and your lower body would be the utmost importance during that.
Yeah. And honestly though, I'm never thinking about one body part or one muscle group. It's, the whole body has to function right. Like if you spend your whole time focusing on one thing, your body's gonna be out of balance and you're gonna ask for an injury. So
right.
It really pays to just look at whole health when you're talking about training. Like you need to look at fitness as being strong cardiovascularly. You need good base fitness. You need good high end response heart rate. You need flexibility. I mean, doing yoga is okay. And then beyond that, you need to be eating right. You got to have a solid diet of healthy food. And that means you can get specific and look at like the amount of protein and carbohydrates you're eating. But more importantly, it's the quality of the food, like not processed foods, but, more natural foods that are rich in nutrients and not full of detrimental additives that'll weigh you down.
Well, and all that accumulates to your mental strength, right? I mean,
and that's a whole nother podcast there. But I think Steve and Denise Hatch they talk about the power of the mind, and that's something specifically I was going to try to host a podcast with them about, and I dropped the ball. But anyway, your diet and your physical state have a lot to do with your mental health and how your mind works. And that's stuff that I learned a little bit about when I started winning races. And that's, I'd say, what eludes a lot of guys is they don't get that under control. And I'm probably completely guilty of it because when I figured out, I sure do a lot better.
Well, it's interesting how as you're getting, older, no offense, but you're kind of plateauing to the point, or you're learning more, and you're able to, kind of look back and take all that knowledge, and now you're applying it to what you're doing every day. And maybe you don't have to do 1,000 push-ups or sit-ups. Maybe it's better to do 100 and go ride more, So I guess it's just kind of interesting to see the progression of things. And just like the sport itself, the two biggest things I see happening right now is your hard enduro series, blown up, and the adventure series, the adventure riding bike stuff. We had Jeff Stanton on 2 episodes ago, and he started an adventure riding series up in Michigan. So you see all that blown up all over the internet and Facebook and stuff. So it's really kind of cool to see how the sport evolves over time. It's not just always traditional things. But where do you see kind of the sport heading in your direction? You're more in tune with the industry and that kind of thing. Are you thinking electric?
I think my view is skewed because I am so engulfed in hard enduro that's all I'm looking at. So it's not fair to ask me because I'm tunnel visioned on it. But it does seem like some of the other racing series may be getting stale. And, it's interesting looking at GNCC right now because Caleb Russell has retired, and at the peak of my racing career, Charlie Mullins was the man, and he and I were having battles that it was cool at that point in my career, where at the beginning of the day he'd smoke me, and at the end of the day he'd start getting nervous because I could put some time on him. But then right when that battle kind of heated up, he had a really unfortunate accident and got hurt. So then Caleb Russell dominated GNCCs, which really kind of made it boring, but he was the man to beat. Then it was a battle for second place. Nobody remembers second place. So now who's going to win? That makes it exciting. The National Enduros, Al's done a phenomenal job bringing that series back to life about the time I got started. But I got burned out on it, so I don't watch it I know what goes on. I got burned out doing it so much, but it lost its excitement for me. But I'll tell you, every time I do one, it's really fun. So
yeah,
if you haven't ridden one, I encourage you to ride one. If you're like me and you got burned out on it, if you can get signed up for one.
Well, I was going to mention that. I talked to Zach, Zach Park and the club and stuff. And I talked to him last week, and he's like, he was trying to sign up, and they had a PayPal issue, and he's like calling a friend from Alabama that was supposed to ride on his minute, and telling the dad, you got to go on there yourself because he got kicked out, and it sounded like they got things figured out, but I mean they had was it 600 riders or 900 or some insane
900
number.
riders.
900. Okay, that's what he was right. Okay, yeah. I mean, could you imagine? I remember when we were riding nationals in the beginning, it was like maybe 300, at the most.
Yeah.
It's like now there's 900 racers, and just think about that race. The poor suckers in the back on minute 150 or 180, whatever it is.
Well, that's the problem. If you're hosting an event where you're trying to make 900 people happy, or at least maybe make 700 of them happy, I'm probably not going to be happy because I don't like what y'all like. And so, when back in the earlier days of National Enduros in the early thousands, they were tough. They were a little more rugged. Things were a little more raw. And now the trails they're just such a pleasure to ride. It makes me miserable. That's a joke, but it's just so fast, to really separate the riders. It's, how fast can you fling yourself through the trees? And I remember I rode a National Enduro in Ohio, I think a year or two ago, and Thad Duvall went by me, and I just thought, there's no way I used to go that fast. And, the last time I raced against him at a National Enduro, I beat him by 1 second. So, the previous time before that. So I'd say, I guess I did used to go that faster, but just I don't want to anymore. So with the hard enduro, it's more of a challenge of technical ability and strength and fitness, and the sport of hard enduro is progressing so quickly that you can't go slow. And for as fit as I am, it's still, like I said, just getting home from the races is a challenge in itself. And then technically, it's like I still have a lot to learn. So when you've got that many challenges in front of you, it makes it a cool thing to pursue because there's that much improvement to strive for. So the National Enduro is just like, how many tenths of a second can I shave off in a mile?
Yeah, I've noticed that. And Al Rant did a fantastic job, like you said, kind of the savior of the series, which was good. But I haven't done it in a long time, so I can't really speak on it, but I've just noticed how wide open it is, at least on videos. Again, I've not ridden them, but but I tell you, there was some sections I saw at the opening round, saw some stuff online that looked like it was really tight. Maybe they had one tight section or something down there in at Sumter. But when you travel to the races, you're recently married, right? Been a couple years now.
I was for a couple months, but that sorted itself out real quick.
I missed what you said.
I said I was for a couple months, but that sorted itself out real quick.
So you're not married anymore. Is that what I'm understanding?
I'm a free agent.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I thought we're still married. So
that's all right. But I did tell you there's nothing off limits.
That's true. That's true. Well, what went wrong? We're going to unpack this. We're going to stay away from that one. Stick to motorcycle.
I didn't change. I kept racing.
That's right.
Well, you'll,
isn't this your anniversary today? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's your husband? He's racing.
Yeah. Well, all the best of luck to you in that department. We won't go any further with any questions on that, but
I do have a question. Just, did you ever happen to race up at, I think it's been 4 or 5 years now, Miles Mountain up in northern Pennsylvania, right in the Pennsylvania, New York State. But they had an enduro. They ran a national enduro up in there. I think it's been 4 or 5. Maybe it's been a little bit longer, but I know we were talking crowds. They had 1,200 riders.
Really?
Yeah. So it's
wow. I never made it there.
It's a motocross track. It's a really good. I grew up there, and actually my school teacher and his son actually has put together Miles Mountain, a nice about a 600-foot change in altitude, on the track, and it's it's that nice loamy dirt, that kind of stuff for motocross, But they only had the enduro one time. I don't think they ever did again, but I know they had the one. But that's, definitely when you talk about 1,200 riders, I mean, is that a 2-day event or why, I mean, it's just unbelievable, but that's amazing. The crowds, for that.
Well, you came up and did you did our race a couple times, right? The Fallen Timbers race, and
Yeah.
yep, you won the
That
first
was a
year.
fun, tight hair scramble with just awesome soil to just, lay it in and tear it up.
Yeah, you rode the mutter. The first
Yeah, I
year.
watched him go by me like 3 times on the first lap. I was just first lapping, and he went by me 3 times.
I remember we had to cut out a section because there was just people buried everywhere, and we were waiting for you to get back around because we couldn't divert the course until the leader came through, and yeah, you certainly that first year you waxed them pretty good. You waxed all the D14 guys pretty good, but I knew it was going to be up your alley as soon as we did a hot lap or a parade lap before the race started, kind of checked the course, and it was muddy, and we were just riding around, and it was getting ruddy, and I'm like, oh man, Nick's gonna smoke him today, and you think you did, yeah. By a lot. So,
I mentioned my grandson Ethan. Not change the subject from
go ahead.
Iraq, but so he's 9. What kind of words of wisdom or encouragement do you have for him to, or any young ones? Because I do have, he's 9, but I also got a couple granddaughters. It's right behind him that get on the bikes and go too. So, what kind of encouragement do you have for him to say, hey, this is, this woods riding a little bit different than, because right now they ride the track a little bit, but so give me some good ammunition to
sell it to him, sell the
it to
wood.
him. Yeah, that way, so I can prod him to get go towards the woods.
Okay, because you're saying that they ride motocross, but you want to see
they ride the track, because that's easier for them. We really, as you know here, we don't have a lot of woods here to ride, so we got the forest a little bit, which is heavy sand, so it's a little tough for the kids. But I'm still trying to get him, get his confidence up to go riding in the woods, So
Yeah.
what would you tell young kids about? Hey, this is a different type of racing. This is this is all the neat things. This
Great
is
question.
This is all the good things to do.
That is an interesting question because I don't know how to answer it, and mostly because I was never pushed into anything with riding. It's just, here's a bike, and I was actually discouraged from motocross. My dad thought it was dangerous and didn't want me to do it, and so he just took me riding in the woods, and it was always a challenge. And I'm always the type to kind of want to push. If something is hard, I want to push into it, and or maybe just only motorcycles, I guess, because that seems to be all I really end up doing. But I wouldn't push a kid into anything except for important life lesson stuff, obviously. But with motorcycles, you got to keep it fun, because anybody I know or you hear about that was pushed to do something, it turns into a job, and then they end up walking away from it, hating it, or you get hurt. So I've made myself miserable. I've had different seasons where I wasn't having fun and my results would suffer. And, when I was doing the national enduros, I was just trying so hard. I actually recently had somebody from Florida, somebody I befriended doing the hard enduros, that he told me that all the guys in Florida, they're sitting around talking. They thought I was a hot-headed jerk just because I'd holler at people on the trail because I was just so, oh man, I just want to go. And point being is sometimes I forget to have fun. And if you're having fun, you have that creative kind of just, I think you learn things out of the fun of it rather than trying to go fast and pounding stuff out. So
yeah, and I'm not trying to push him. I'm trying to steer him a little bit more off the track to something else, So a little hesitant, he finally built up to get on the track. Now it's, let's go in the woods. It's like, oh man, there's trees, But
and so here's another thing is, like, you look at European motocross, like they don't ride these immaculate groomed tracks like we have here. And so if these youngsters are the type that can look at that and see that some of the best riders in Europe are riding imperfect tracks, and then you look at the woods and be like, look, like this is cross training. Like you need to face the fears, and you need to challenge yourself to get out of that box. And I don't know how to convey that to a kid. I mean, this is deep stuff here.
Well, you talked about fun, and that's it. If you're having fun, I don't care what you're doing, you're gonna like it. So, if you're looking at a track or you're looking at the woods, what's fun for you when you look at that woods, what's the fun part of that? What are you thinking when you go?
What makes it fun is a balance of what are you capable of and what are you doing and how can you subtly challenge yourself to where you feel good about having done that. So if you've got a box here, like this is what you're capable of, and then over here there's something more challenging outside of that box that you can kind of, it's like, let's try that. Like, let's try that hill. Let's try going over this log, find things that that young rider is capable of, but that they might be a little uncomfortable with, and show them how to do it. And then once they do that, it opens their eyes like, oh, wow. So all of a sudden, that line on the outside of a turn where you pop over that log and you sweep a turn a lot faster, where normal, like a rider that doesn't know they can go over that log might avoid it. And then they're closing doors to possible lines. And once you find more lines and more things you can ride, you start taking smoother lines, carrying more speed. You turn the woods into a herky-jerky zigzag around things to a flow and a jump fest through and over stuff. If you watch me ride through the woods, I don't hit most of the stuff. I'm jumping from one thing to the next. And, where I can see the ground, I'll drift a turn where, a lot of guys, they carve an inside rut and clip a handlebar on a tree, and I don't know what they're doing. So
perfect answer. That's a perfect answer, because it is a challenge. And I tell motocross guys all the time, if you really want to be a better rider, go ride the woods, go ride the desert, go wherever. It'll make every place you go. I mean, when I go ride we'll ride, 60, 70 miles, there's nothing the same. It's
right.
Never the same. I don't go into the corner and there's a nice line, there's a cactus, there's a tree, there's a big old rock, there's a big hole, there's a big whatever. And, and it makes you, for me, personally, it just challenged me to be able to focus so quickly, on what you see and what you got to do. Anymore, it's not that quick, but it's a great, like you said, it's fun for you because you're challenging yourself all the time. And I think that's what, unfortunately kids don't get challenged much anymore. They go and do what they want to do. Their biggest challenge is maybe killing the next monster in the next room or something games, they do in the video games. But, it's perfect. Like what you said though, is that, it's the challenge. It's a challenge, but it's fun. And like I said, I rode with a gentleman out in Arizona many, many years ago. And we used to call him the steward of the, the desert, because he would take single track, and when it started getting eroded or whatever, he would clean the entrance of that trail off so you wouldn't find it, and he'd do something else so that the, stuff could grow up and it wouldn't get rotted out. So Murphy, he would go out there, and he, at that point in time, I'm in my 20s and he's in his 50s, and, and we were riding. Another friend of mine used to ride all the time, and we were riding one day, and he goes, come ride with us. It's like, when a guy's 50 years old, when I'm 20, and says, come ride with us because we're slow, it's like, yeah, there's a problem here. There's no slow to it, but we did go riding with him. And I remember going up this one hill climb. You're sort of zigzagging across this hill. You cut across it, and you turned and went straight up. And the top of the hill was about a 2-foot straight ledge.
Cliff, yeah, ledge.
Rock. And I remember getting to the top of that thing and stopping and getting off my bike and going, I just can't believe I did that.
Right.
My buddy and I, we would have never tried that, but with him, we're trying to keep up with the guy and ride with him, and it was just, it was like, all of a sudden it's like, wow, I can ride some more of this stuff.
Well, you got challenged.
Yep, challenged, and it was so fun. And I'm home telling my wife, and my wife's like, "What are you talking about?" But it is, like you said, it was, man. Once you got it, it's like, hey, bring it on.
You talked about that on the phone. You and I did, Nick. I think you said you were surprised what you're capable of doing now, as opposed to, just several years ago on a bike.
Yeah. Definitely. I have started riding trials a little bit to learn how to properly ride a bike. I thought I was good when I would just play around on my dirt bike and do stuff in the woods, and most people that I was around wasn't doing. But now that I'm competing against ex-professional trials riders, and then some of the race promoters are just sadistic weirdos that think you should race through and over some of these things. And I'm serious. Some of these guys, the pro trials guys think it's cool. And you're like, yeah, it's really hard, but it's like this, you know, it's a weird sport to define, but to, you know, what I think you're commenting on, Matt, is we were talking about this race in Texas I had done last October, and they ran us through these series of these boulders that were the sizes of engine blocks and kitchen tables and things. And I mean, just friggin' irregular. And I'm looking at it like last time I've been to Arizona, I remember kind of poking around in this stuff, but like I was a fish out of water trying to ride that stuff. And all of a sudden, like I'm in the middle of a race. So I had to, you know, just get after it. And so I kind of caught a gear, not shifting up and going faster, but just mentally. It's like catch a gear mentally, physically, just step up and do this. And I made some moves and got going in that stuff. But I will say I completely exhausted myself, kind of riding over my head, making it happen. So that was a learning on the fly, digging deep, make it happen. Because that's, I'm not gonna say I can't do this. So there's something to be said about operating under the pressure when you're in a race. You know, you're operating at a higher level, and that's, I think, what us off-road racers and maybe in motocross as well, anybody that's competing in anything's at a high level, it becomes an addiction, because once you're engaged in that sport, everything else kind of doesn't matter. And it's just you can't do that in practice or in play. It's another world you step into.
Isn't it weird though? Like you can practice, ride 5 days a week, but like when the gate drops or the flag drops, that level of intensity goes through the roof on race day. I just remember that distinctly. It's not the same. It's hard to practice, push yourself in practice to like you're going to do on a race day.
So we're not going to see it anytime soon going to the King of the Hammers or anything like that?
King of Hammers, I think they just had that.
Yeah. That's the same thing as what there's rocks the size of Volkswagens there that you've got to go through.
And I don't mind that. I just as an example, like not getting to do that in Ohio, like if I do travel to train, it's like, okay, like let's work on that. But I'm not opposed to it. It's just I'm more accustomed to the East Coast races. It's more about hills and slippery stuff and smaller rocks. It just slowly beats you to death instead of one big one. It's just like, oh gosh, I gotta get over this. So, but no, I'm going to the Arizona, the opening West round in Arizona. I believe here a month from recording. I don't know when this is released, but March 20th, I think it is. So I believe I can get a bike out there. So
how long?
I don't know about the rest of the West rounds. Riding for the Factory One Sherco team, it's kind of a loose deal this year after a crazy, COVID 2020. 2021, we've started the year with a bike shortage, and I think business has just been funny. There's crazy demand for the bikes, but supply has been interrupted, and so the race team has to feel that a little bit. So short story long, I don't really know what I'm doing this year, except for I know I'm doing the SEER hard enduros. I'm doing all the East Coast extreme stuff. I'm kind of shifting focus away from U.S. racing for a minute so I can go to Romania and do the Romaniacs hard enduro. So that's going to end up, I'll probably miss a race or two here. But as for the Western races, like you mentioned King of Hammers or King of Motos, I don't know how many of the West races I'm going to do, because I'd have to probably just quit my job for the summer to go drive to them. And while I'd love to do that, at some point you got to say, look, if you guys are if I'm representing a team and it's your team, have a bike there and I'll get there. But I can't spend 2 weeks total driving all these races. So,
well, if you get to Arizona and you want somebody to show you around some of those rocks and stuff, a good buddy of mine, he's a lot slower than you. He's in his 60s, but he's been riding that area up north there for probably, I don't know, 50 years. I shouldn't say that, but
he's one of them local guys that can
he's a local guy.
Get you all the intel.
He'll get you all in there, and he loves the rocks to play in. He loves to play, and that's the guy. That's the guy I've been riding with for a long, long time. And he enjoys, like you said, it's fun. it's fun to watch him even because he's always playing on the trail, whether it's a rock to jump over or, you know, he's not always on the trail. You know, you see him coming from everywhere, but you ever get out there, he's out there. And, you know, if I get a phone number from Matt, I'll shoot you his name and say hi to him. His brother, Mick, drove for Stillwell when they were running the team for the enduro cross. So he was with his brother was with them all the time, and Marty rides. He's retired, so he rides almost all the time, you know. And if it rains, he'll ride every day that it rains. So really? They get perfect weather out there.
I know he's a tough dude, Nick, because he flew in to race the hare scramble up here in Toledo, and he separated his shoulder,
dislocated his shoulder,
but then he popped it back in.
Yeah,
because we were on the radios and we're like, somebody's out. He's got to separate his shoulder, and I don't know how it came. It popped back in. I don't know what happened.
One of our other local riders that used to always have that to help him put him back in.
Oh,
yeah.
Little trail maintenance.
Rocky went up. He knew exactly what to do because every time I turned around and saw him at the track or whatever, he was always popping his shoulder back in. Popped it back in. He rolled back around. Got to Andrew because Andrew was team racing with him, and he said, Andrew, you're gonna have to ride it out. I'm done because I've got a separated shoulder, or it popped out. I don't want to pop it out again.
Right.
And around, but he does the Baja. You know, he does part of the California stuff, the Big Bear stuff, and he goes over there. But they do a lot of. He does a lot of right now. I think he told me the other day he won the 60 plus.
Wow. And
he's working on the 67.
We'll have to get you connected if you ever get out that way, Nick.
He is a Husky guy, so he usually gets it's because all that group with Taylor and all those guys. There's always somebody that's got a bike that they've tested and done everything with, and then go, okay, it's time for a new bike. So he always buys their bikes, and then when his bike comes up, I've got one in the garage that I bought last year. Nice. I pick up his bike that's been decked out, you know, and tested, and because they do a lot of testing with Stillwell out there. And so they usually have all the kinds of stuff on it and stuff. So we get some pretty cool bikes that's been tweaked. But yeah, I'll
cool.
shoot you.
Sounds like a good resource for if I end up in Arizona.
Yeah, Marty's
absolutely
great. He lives up in the Carefree area, and if you say ride, he's right there. He gets to ride from his home, so he lives right up there. So
wouldn't that be nice?
I'll get you his number. You can always give him a call and say, "Hey, Marty, you ready to ride?" And you don't have to ask him twice.
Well, is there anything, any parting thoughts, Nick, before we don't keep you too late, but is there any parting thoughts on your end before we wrap up here tonight?
Not really. You mentioned that race in northern Pennsylvania, and I thought, speaking of neighbors, there's one cool race worth mentioning is a corduroy enduro there in Canada.
I've done it
more north of like Niagara Falls, but I got to do that a year and a half ago, and I don't know if either of you have done that, but
I've done
that. That is a cool race.
You have?
Yeah.
It's a 3-day long, kind of ISDE format style, but like traditional enduro trail. I've had some buddies talking about it recently because they're going to try to do it this September, and I don't know, it's just worth talking about it. It's cool, but
so I don't remember what year it was, but my dad and I and Cody Maston went up there and rode it. It's like 4 or 5 hour drive, I think. And it was not a good weekend for them guys. Cody got food poisoning and ended up middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning. He's losing dinner, and so he was crashed out in the box fan the whole Sunday. My dad lost the clutch the first 10 miles into the race. And it was one of the most beautiful trails. It was unbelievable. You couldn't believe what you were riding on. So yeah, that was that was probably 10, 12 years ago, a long time ago. But I remember that. It was a lot of fun. I think they had brand X rules. I couldn't quite figure all that out. At least they did at that time.
Yeah, I still don't understand the timekeeping, but it kind of, it's like the timekeeping doesn't matter. You just ride, and then you race the special tests, and you get back to the clubhouse, and everybody's having a good time. So
now that sounds the kind of ride I like.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I haven't ridden in Canada. The only Canada riding I did is Whistler. I rode up in Whistler at a KTM dealer meeting up there. We got to ride up there. We actually got to ride. I got to ride the new 300 when they went with the counter shaft, and it smoothed out and that kind of stuff. And that's what sold me on the 300, because I've always been a 4-stroke guy. Well, previous year's 2-stroke, but now everything's moved to 4-stroke, and I just like, we got to have one of these.
Yeah.
You know, the 300 was just so smooth, and it was more like my 4-stroke, but yet, you know, you could do all kinds of stuff with it. So we rode up in there and just, you know, got to be up in the mountains of, you know, Whistler.
Have you been there, Nick, to that Whistler he's talking about?
I've done a lot of mountain biking there, so
Yeah.
I've always wanted to take a dirt bike there. And man, that soil and that terrain, like that's badass.
Yeah.
Magical.
It was just beautiful. It was, you know, it was even a little rainy day even, but you know, it didn't make any difference. It was just like, it's like riding Colorado, you know, I mean, you get out and enjoy Colorado, and it's like, you know, we do up a lot of around Telluride, that area some. And when we ride, it's like, man, you look at these mountains, and I mean, you know, in Whistler, you get out there, it's not like Colorado. I mean, Colorado, you could go maybe 50, 60 miles before you find another place. But
yeah.
up there, you start heading east. I don't know if you'd find anybody for
really? That
300 or 400 miles.
Pretty remote.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you know, there's a road that goes up the West Coast, and not very many roads going to the east. You know, but I mean, just mountains. I mean, just unbelievable. So.
Well, I remember, just so the audience knows or heed this advice, if you're going into Canada, no matter what you're going for, do not get into the wrong lane crossing the bridge, because when we went up there to race the corduroy, I inadvertently, I was driving the box fan, got into the wrong lane, Marty. Next thing you know, the box fan is being searched.
Oh.
We were told to pull over by a nice gentleman with a gun, and he said, "Get over here." We got over there, and you got in the wrong lane, pal. I don't know what happened, but anyway, they searched the whole box fan. Didn't have nothing but motorcycles in the box fan, thank goodness, and you know, kept it clean. But yeah, we ended up. That should have been the sign that race wasn't going to go so well. You know, the search and the seizure, if you will, heading up to Canada. But
have you done any Mexico rides, like the Baja stuff at all?
No, just the 6 days, and then you know, at that point in my life, you know, Mexico seemed like a scary place, and then when scary stuff happened, it's just like, yeah, we're not coming back here. But I would like to do some kind of an adventure ride. You know,
do the Baja. Marty goes down. He goes down about twice a year. Him and 3-4 other guys go down, and they run the Baja Peninsula, and they know, they can tell you where all the good food is. They can tell you where all the neat things are. They can take you out and let you pet whales. They've got it all. They've got it down. So they've got it tracked right out.
Wow.
and stuff. But I was able to go. Actually, the picture hanging on the wall over there.
I see it.
I was running an old XR 350 back in the days, but it was probably one of. I mean, I've never rode like you have around the world, but for me, it was one of the best rides, even barring, Montana and Wyoming and Utah and, Idaho. And it just is so unreal riding it and seeing so many different sights in your 4 or 5 day ride. The oceans, from one ocean and the beach being hard rock to others being sand. You could ride on the beaches for 100 miles if you want, to riding, 6,000 feet on the ridges down, being snowed on, to all this stuff. Yeah. It was just so cool to ride, in Mexico. Cause there's just, at least the Baja part. Say I'd stay away from the mainland for sure, but there's just so many really cool, just the terrain's different.
Yeah.
You're
Variety.
not, yeah. And there's some, we tend when you get down there to stay a little bit closer to the road type, the 4-wheeler side, so you're not really getting off and getting hurt somewhere and have to chopper you out. But it is really neat. Get on a beach and ride down a beach.
That's cool.
If you ever get a chance, again, Marty, they do it. They usually do it. They got 3 or 4 guys that go down at least twice a year and just enjoy the ride. So
cool.
We get that way. Let us know you're going to do it, and we'll haul the bikes out for you, and you just fly in. That's what we normally get. My wife and I haul the bikes. All the guys fly in, do the ride, and go home.
That's awesome.
And then we ride back. We drive back. So, but anyway, I thanks very much. I mean, you're the guy for me because I'm an off-road guy. So I don't mind talking to the motocross guys, but the off-road guys are.
You're an off-roader at heart.
I am.
Well, thanks again, Nick, and we can't thank you again for coming on with us. We hope you enjoyed it. It sounds probably sure you did, and always good to talk to you again and see you, and obviously all the best best of luck to you this season, and keep in touch with us, and hopefully you bring home some championships. So it'd be great.
When you come our way,
That'd be
the door's always open. So if you ever need anything, please stop by and see us up here. Call Matt, call me.
If you ever come up to the state forest, shoot me a text. We'll jump out there.
I live about a mile from the state forest. So
yep, me too.
Oh wow,
right. I'm right around the corner.
Yeah,
literally. So as we wrap up, we want to thank our show sponsor, Championship Power Sports, located in Waseon, Ohio. They got a special deal going for our podcast listeners. So give owner Jim Dervage a call and mention the promo code Toledo Podcast. That's promo code Toledo Podcast. You can also check out their website at championshippowersports.com and see all their major brands that they carry, especially the new gas. Marty, I want to thank you for tuning into Season 2, Episode 5, and once again want to thank our guest, Sherco's Nick Fahringer, for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell, and give us a like on Facebook. If you have comments, questions, concerns, or ideas, we want to hear from you. So send us an email at ToledoTrackandTrail@gmail.com. That's ToledoTrackandTrail@gmail.com. Until next time, we hope you and your family can get outside and enjoy the sport of motocross and off-road racing and riding. Stay on the track and trail wherever you are and be good stewards of the sport that you love so much. On behalf of my co-host, Marty Wheeler, I'm Matt Bucher. We thank you again for tuning in to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast. Stay safe, everyone.